Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for my quick playthrough of Advanced Salvo. Now for this scenario I've not gone for anything particularly historical, but I've gone for what I feel is a good might have been that serves just to illustrate how this game system works and how incredibly simple it is while returning, I think, quite reasonable results. So in this hypothetical meeting at sea, it's set during the Bismarck campaign of May 1941, but assuming that the Admiralty's disposition of its forces was very, very different, what's happened here is that on a hypothetical 26th of May, let's say, because that's today's date, Bismarck, having detached Prince Eugen, comes across a lonely King George V who is busily transferring from one task force to another. Now, I'm making the assumption that there's been no Battle of the Denmark Strait, so Bismarck is undamaged, and similarly King George V hasn't seen any action up to this moment. So the two most modern capital ships in their respective sides' forces are about to square off. So in terms of what you need for the game, you really don't need very much. You have the ship counters for both sides. I'm just going to very quickly talk you through what everything is, just as a reminder. So up here, you have the basic information. Double B denotes she's a battleship with 14-inch primary guns. That is the broadside gunnery rating, bow gunnery rating, stern gunnery rating. And these numbers, moving from left to right, are flotation, turret protection, speed, and armour. And that's basically all you need to know for this game system. And to set up for a solitaire game, all you do is you place the two counters relatively close by in relation to each other. And because this works for me as a player, I have just in advance written out a game table which will help me keep track of what's going on. So I've got a space for weather, range, and I've prepared damage sheets for both ships just to record what they do to each other over the course of the fight. So the numbers in brackets are the maximum that each ship can take. So if Bismarck, for example, suffers 8 flotation hits by a certain turn, then she sinks. And similarly, King George V, if she suffers 7, then that's it for her. The turret ratings, once your turret damage exceeds that rating, you can't fire. You get a -1 modifier for each turret damage, each point of turret damage you suffer. And similarly, speed can be reduced by damage. So that really is it. That's all the paperwork I need to worry about. So at the outset of a scenario, the most important thing to do is determine the starting weather. So I'm going to get 2d6, two 6-sided dice, and roll on the weather table. Now, because this is May, it doesn't trigger the summer or the winter modifiers. So it's just a straight die roll, and I've rolled a 9, which means fair weather, no modifiers. Okay, it's a beautiful day for a battle. So I'm just going to record on my sheet that the weather is fair. And now I'm going to move on to the initial sighting range. So no modifiers. Again, it's a straight 2d6. And I've rolled a total of 11, which means the ships sight each other at extreme range. Okay, it really is a beautiful day for it. So the first thing that happens in a solitaire game is both players decide what aspect their ship is going to take. So you can order your ship to close, in which case you turn your bow facing towards the enemy. You can offer your broadside, or if you're feeling the fight is really not going your way, you can turn away and withdraw. If you really mean to run, you can also call disengage as you withdraw, meaning that you get a bonus towards the dice roll at the end of the turn to see whether the game ends at that point. Now, I'm not going to do that because I'm full of fight and wanting to take down this terrible threat to Britain's lifeline. So, equally, I have a shrewd idea that Bismarck might want to close. So I'm going to take the fairly cautious middle road of offering my broadside, and I'm going to see what Bismarck does. So, looking at the table that governs solitaire enemy movement, it's a straight d6. And it's a 6. Now that is very curious. Bismarck has decided to withdraw. She's decided not to fight. Okay. Not quite what I was expecting, but then, you know, Admiral Lutyens' orders were very much along those lines. So, over Captain Lindemann's objections, Lutyens orders the Bismarck to turn away. Now, normally, that would actually end the game, because if you're already at it... oh, wait, no, the game does not end, because I will have a chance to pursue next turn. Shut up. I'm not... it's not over yet. But it does mean that no firing can take place, I don't think, because he's moved beyond extreme range. Oh yes, I've just looked at the rules. He's basically successfully done a runner. Now, that is fair enough in most circumstances. It's his right to run away over the horizon if he wishes to. But I realise that also makes for a rather lousy demonstration video. So let's assume that he did not run away, but that he rolled a 3 or a 4, which would be off a broadside. So what has effectively happened is that both of us are cautiously steaming along. The range is extreme, so the chances of hitting are very low, but we're going to try it anyway. If we don't get anywhere, then maybe we will take the risk of closing. So the way the basic game works is that the ship with the bigger caliber of guns opens fire first. Now, I realise in terms of realism, this is a tiny bit problematic, because when you look at the gunnery control systems available to both sides, there's actually no great reason why Bismarck should fire first as opposed to King George V, but we'll go with the rules as given in the basic game. So I will graciously allow Bismarck to fire first. So the first thing that happens is that Bismarck consults the fire table. She rolls 2d6, that's the standard for any ship, and at extreme range, she's got to get a total of 10 or better to land a hit on me. So her guns thunder out, and she rolls a 4. Now, even allowing for the beautiful weather conditions, that's nowhere near what she needs, so she's way off target. And the turn now passes to the King George V, who will also fire. And I rolled a 7, better, but not good enough. So one round of firing has produced no result for either side. So we don't go through any of the damage procedures because there were no hits. Neither battleship has torpedoes. And so that means we go straight to the end of turn table. And I've rolled a 2. Normally that would be begin a new turn. Neither of us closed and neither of us withdrew, so there's no modifier there, and nobody called disengage. So although the range is extreme, nobody is actually going to end the game or run away. So what I'm going to do from now on is play through the scenario, but I won't keep waving the game tables in front of you unless there's something of particular interest. And I'll move the ships into centre spot so you can see what's going on. Right, so we're back to a new turn and we go straight to the fire table. Bismarck, with her annoyingly larger guns, only by an inch, mind, is... Oh wait, no, I lie. Before the firing starts, mustn't get ahead of myself. I am going to take a risk and I'm going to close the range. And Bismarck, rolling, decides she's going to offer broadside. That's not good news for me. So the range drops to long. I have to just hope that Bismarck doesn't hit me this turn. The way this scenario is shaping out is starting to sound distressingly familiar, although in this alternate universe I can't quite put my finger on why. Let's just hope it ends well. So now that we've done our movement and the range is long, Bismarck will open fire. Now at long range she needs an 8 or better to score a straddle. I'm going to hold my breath. She gets a 7. So the shots are beginning to land closer, but still no dice. I'm going to return fire, and I get a 4. Oh dear, this is really not going well. So end of turn table, I roll a 3, and given that I had a close action this turn, that's modified to 2. So the game is certainly not ending. And now we get to the next turn. I'm going to go back to my cautious approach and I'm going to offer my broadside again. Bismarck is going to close. Interestingly, okay. We assessed the situation and we both came to very different conclusions. So the range has now dropped to medium long. As a point of interest, so far the range has only been closing by one band each turn because only one ship has been closing. If both of us closed at the same time, the range would drop rather more dramatically. So if I had closed this turn as well, the range would have gone from long straight down to medium. But Bismarck's decided to let me cross her T this turn, which is very kind of her. But as ever, she gets the first shot, so let's see what happens. At medium long, she needs a 7 or better to hit me. Ooh, and she gets an 8. Okay, the honour of the first straddle goes to Bismarck. So I'm just going to mark a little S on my sheet to show that Bismarck has straddled King George V. And that's just a reminder for future turns that Bismarck now has the range. Not good news for me, but what can you do? So as it's the first hit of the game, I'm just going to go back to this so that you can all see the straddle table. So it's 3d6 this time with various modifiers. So Bismarck rolled a 12, and to that she adds her bow gunnery rating, which is 3 for 15. Oh dear. What is taken away from this is the modification for range. Now at medium to long, that's no modification. That's not good news for me. However, you also take away the target's armour, which in my case is 6. So 15 minus 6 gives me 9. And thank goodness, 9 and below is no effect. So Bismarck straddled us fair and square, but thankfully the King George V has picked up nothing worse than splinters and superficial damage. However, the straddle is bad news because from now on, Bismarck, every time she fires, will enjoy a +2 modifier on the firing table. I really need to get my act together. So King George V fires and gets a 7. Wonderful. We have straddled Bismarck right back. And because we have our broadside pointing towards her, maybe we might wound her. Let's see what happens. So making my roll on the straddle table, I get a 9, which is not great. My broadside gunnery rating takes my total up to 14, and taking away Bismarck's protection rating also gives me a 9. So I've straddled the German battleship, but equally my shots are not really telling. We've rolled a 1 for the end of turn table, which means that the game is most definitely not over. So new turn. I am going to hold my course and carry on presenting my broadside. Bismarck, likewise, having become satisfied with the range, is going to turn and offer her broadside as well. So I think this is now going to turn into a bit of a slugging match. She opens fire and gets a 6 with the modifiers, takes it up to 8. Ah, dear, she's benefiting from that straddle now. So I just have to see whether she damages me this turn. So gathering up her 3 dice for the straddle table while I hold my breath. Oh, she rolled a 7. That could have been a lot worse. So it's a total of 13, but my armour renders it an ineffective hit. Nice. Let's see if we can get her back for that. So King George V shoots and also lands a hit, thanks to having found the range as well. Unfortunately, I have a total of 13 as well, with my gunnery factors thrown in. So we're simply not hitting each other hard enough. Blows are being landed, but they're just not decisive, and they're not penetrating anything vital. We've rolled a 5 on the end of turn table now, but nobody is withdrawing or doing anything like that, so the battle continues. I'm going to hold my course. Bismarck has decided to close. Okay, they're really going to try odds now. It's going to make things a bit rougher, and I think it will increase the effectiveness of our weaponry. So we have dropped from medium-long down to medium range. Bismarck is going to take her shot first as always, but I hope I can capitalise on her brief vulnerability. She rolls a 3, which is incredibly lucky for me, because at medium range she would have needed a 6 or better to hit me, to score on the firing table, and with her straddle modifier she got a 5. Okay, that turn must have thrown her gunnery officer off just enough. KG5 is going to have a go. And we get a 6. It would have been an 8 with our straddle modifier, but either way it's exactly what we needed. Oof, and I've rolled a 14 on the 3 dice. So adding my turret broadside ratings, that is up to 19. And additionally, because the range is now medium, it's up to 21. Ouch. So Bismarck gets the subtraction for her armour, which brings it down to 16. But that is all the benefit she gets, unfortunately. So just peeking quickly again at the straddle table. Unluckily for Bismarck, a 16 is a critical hit. So I roll 2d6 on the critical hit table. I get a 4. So there we go. So a 4 on the critical hit table is the director. So that's the equivalent of 2 turret hits. Okay. That is not good news for the Bismarck, because at this early stage in the battle, she has suffered significant damage to her fire control capability. And the Brits are feeling a tiny bit better about themselves. So end of turn table is a 1, so this is definitely still on. I think tactically my next move is a no-brainer. I'm going to continue offering my broadside. Bismarck has decided she's going to withdraw and open the range a bit. So we go back out to medium long. Now, for those of you who might be thinking that this is a bit of a weird game system, where, you know, first they're closing, then they change their mind and withdraw, and then it does happen in a fair few games where the manoeuvring of the enemy battleship in the solitaire version may be quite erratic. If it helps any, I rationalise this as the enemy captain taking evasive manoeuvres to throw off your gunnery, because it's exactly the sort of effect in range changes that you would get with zigzagging. So in terms of narrative, I think it works quite well. Bismarck was trying to press her advantage and close the range, but now this hit to her director has changed everything. She still gets the benefit of her straddle, but it's effectively negated by the damage that's been done to her firepower. So she can still hit accurately, but it's, you know, the effectiveness is reduced. So she's now attempting to throw me off for all the good that's going to do her. Plus, it may also bring the game to an end, because there is that modifier, despite the good visibility. Anyway, the range is back out to medium long, and Bismarck is going to fire some parting shots at me. She got a 6, which is a hit. So she did need 7 or better, but a natural 6 plus her straddle bonus gets us. So she rolls a 9, which comes to 12 with her stern gunnery factors thrown in. And unfortunately for her, that really doesn't help, because with my armour factored in, that renders the hit ineffective. Not only that, she has a -2 applied for the 2 turret hits that, well, the director hit, which effectively translates as 2 turret hits, so that was pretty ineffective. Sensing my advantage, King George V is going to fire, and she gets a 7 + 2, which is definitely a hit. And on the straddle table, I have rolled a 10, which with my gunnery factors is 15. Now that may not be enough. I don't think it is. No. Oh wait, no. We're at medium to long, so there's no modifier, and Bismarck's armour rating is 5, so that reduces it to a 10. I have just scored a flotation hit. So I'll mark the flotation hit on Bismarck's sheet. The other thing is there's an optional rule in this game which I quite like, where they tie in the effects of flotation hit with the impact on a vessel's speed. And under this optional rule, every time a capital ship takes a flotation hit, it has to roll a dice. If it rolls a 5 or 6, there's no effect from the hit. If it rolls a 4 or less, its speed is reduced by 1. So Bismarck rolls, and unfortunately rolls a 1. So that hit I've just scored on her has caused flooding, which has reduced her speed somewhat. Not anything noticeable, I wouldn't think, but if it builds up, it could become a problem. And now we get to the end of turn phase. Now I've rolled a 5, and that's upped to 6 because Bismarck had a withdraw order. They didn't call disengage, but we still need to roll again, because when you get a total of 6 on the end of turn table, there is a chance the game will end. Now we're at medium to long, so if I roll a 1 to 4, Bismarck gets away. Ah, a 4. She got away with it. Ah, okay then. So, despite the amazing conditions, I was probably a bit too timid in keeping the range at a sensible level, and Bismarck makes her escape. You could rationalise this in various ways. The Atlantic weather is terribly unpredictable. King George V decides not to push her luck in a surface action and maybe wants to fall back on the task force now that Bismarck has been wounded, and decides to let her go for now. Unlikely, but a possibility. Or it simply may have been the case that, as it was historically, King George V is having to watch her fuel gauges and has reached a point in this brief engagement where she cannot risk pursuing the Bismarck any further. But having damaged her, hopefully the other Royal Navy elements will be able to run her to ground and finish her off. After all, this is an alternate history scenario, so for all I know, King George V was probably on her way to rendezvous with Hood and Prince of Wales, so she's driven Bismarck in the right direction, and those two will hopefully catch her and finish off the wounded monster. But either way, KG5 is deprived of her moment of glory in winning this single combat, because Bismarck, having admittedly got the worst of this engagement, has very sensibly decided to withdraw. There does come a point where, if you're on a mission like that in the middle of a hostile ocean with no friendly bases nearby, I must confess I can see the logic of Bismarck's withdrawal. So there we go. Enough alternate history prattling from me. King George V just goes on her merry way. So there we go. That was a game of Advanced Salvo. I hope that's all made sense and has given you a flavour of what a game of this series is like. As you can see, the components are minimal, and if you were really stuck for space, there's no reason why you can't fight battles like this on a sheet of paper and just do little illustrations to show what the ships are doing by way of bearing and what the range to them is. So I think this is a great system with a lot of replayability to it, and it is a lot of fun because it builds up a fantastic narrative and it has its tense moments. But anyway, most importantly, I hope you've got a sense of what the game is like and whether you'd consider investing in it. I certainly would recommend it, but I will leave such ideas for my final thoughts video, which will be coming up next. So in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed Advanced Salvo. If you do have any questions about the game, any comments or anything you'd like to know more about my experiences with it, please do leave them. I'll try to answer as rapidly as I'm able. And it just leaves me to say thank you very much for following this series. A huge hello to my veterans as always. I hope you've liked having something a bit different from the usual fare I put out. And to anyone who might be visiting the channel for the first time, a warm welcome to you. If it's Advanced Salvo that caused you to stumble across this, you're more than welcome. I expect I will be doing more videos about Gary Graeber's excellent design, so stay tuned for those, and please do have a look at some of my oldest and earliest efforts with this designer. But if it's wargaming in general, welcome to the channel. Please feel free to browse, and I hope you find something that you like here. And as always, to all of you, thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the concluding video and the final thoughts. Take care. Bye.